Hey y'all, spiritual whistleblower here. How y'all doing? I'm in an amazing mood today. I hope you're having a fabulous day. The skin is skinning, it's glowing. I'm in a great mood. God is great. He's awesome. He's amazing. Quick disclaimer before I get into this video, because this is a really good video. I will be in Toronto, Canada. Yay! Now this is like my third time doing a seminar in Canada. So if you've been to one of my seminars previously in the past in Toronto, I welcome you to come back. And for all my new followers from Toronto, I would love to meet you for the first time. I will be in Toronto Wednesday, May 14th. The workshop is from 3 to 6 p.m. I will be doing a book signing. I will be selling merchandise, books. What else? Q&A, question and answer session. Anything you want to ask me. We're going to cover everything about narcissistic abuse, your lover, your baby daddy, baby mama, whoever, your parents. We're going to cover it all. Okay. Take lots of photos. I give out hugs. You know, a lot of times when my supporters come to these, wherever I go, anywhere in the US, I've been to Europe, London, Paris, I do these support groups. There's a lot of tears shed. A lot of people get to release. A lot of people get to vent, because you can't just, unless you've been through this type of abuse, nobody will understand. So you're going to be around your tribe. You're going to be around people that get it and get you. You won't feel crazy. You'll feel validated leaving my, workshop. So that is Wednesday, May 14th, Toronto. It's a private event. I do not give out the address of my event. So once you purchase your ticket on Eventbrite, I will email you directly the address. So I'm going to pin the link to get the tickets. There was a little technical error on Eventbrite that's been fixed. So if you want to purchase your ticket, you go right ahead, y'all. Thank you. All right. So I want to do this video to educate you guys. I have it figured out, this narcissistic abuse thing, just based off of my life, my experiences with my narcissistic mother and father. I want to talk about your mother, okay? And I'm going to give a really good story time. Why does your narcissistic mother bully you? What is her fucking issue with you? And I hope by sharing this story that something clicks in your brain. And I want you to stop taking everything personal. Let me take that back, because the abuse is personal. I don't wish that on anybody, because the abuse has a long-term psychological damage. It fucks you up for a long time, PTSD. So I don't mean it that way. I mean that, her issues with you is pure projection. I've learned to not internalize it. I actually feel sorry for my mother, but I understand now why she bullied me the way that she did. Okay, so here it goes. Like I told y'all previously, I understand my mother's upbringing. Both her biological parents were trifling. I'm going to say it. My grandmother, Vera Mae Gibson, rest in peace. I do believe that my grandmother, Vera, was definitely a covert narcissist, hands down, just by her behavior, the multiple baby fathers, abandoning one child and starting a new family. That's the behavior of a narcissist. Narcissists they have, look at all these men today. They go around having multiple baby mamas, creating broken homes. That's what narcissists do. They don't have children out of love. They have children to permanently attach themselves to the other person. It's a form of control, coercive control. I got you pregnant. Now you're trapped. Now you're locked down, and I can move on to the next woman. And I'll be able to always come back to you because you have my child. You can't deny me access because you have my child. Okay? And they don't love the child either. The child is just like an anchor so that they can have access to control the baby mother. Okay? So male and female narcissists, this is how they do. They can have children. They can have millions of kids all over the place, and they have no emotional connection to the child. They move right along and start new families wherever they go. And that's what happened. My grandmother, Vera, she could have children with this one and children with that one and walk away with no emotion. That's because my grandmother is a narcissist. And I don't care who in the family gets mad. I'm tired of my family walking around with blinders on. How the fuck can we heal from generational trauma if it's not addressed head on? I'm tired of it. And I dare somebody to attack me or come for my neck because I'm speaking on my deceased grandmother. I don't give a fuck. We're still today in 2025 cleaning up the mess of our fucking elders. So yes, call it out. My grandmother Vera, may she rest in peace. I love her. However, she fucked up her children because she was emotionally disconnected from them, period. So, the story is she had a fling, an affair with a married man, my granddaddy, Langston, biological grandfather Langston. And he got my grandmother pregnant with twins. My mother and her late sister, I believe her sister, when they were born, I don't know the story too well. Maybe her sister was 1 or 2 years old. She was a toddler when she passed away. My mother is actually a twin. What my grandmother did then, because it was so shameful of her to be sleeping around with a married man, first of all, I believe she knew what she was doing. But married men are also nasty. They're narcissists. They have no problem cheating on their wives and starting a family on the other side of town. And that's what my grandfather Langston was. He was a serial cheater. He was totally a narcissist. Both of them were. And so my grandmother, to protect her image and keep running the streets, because she was, she was fast, running the streets, but doing extensive emotional damage to her daughter, my mother, dumps my mother off on her grandmother. So it is my mother's grandmother, my great grandmother, who raised my mother up until, high school. That's how the story was told to me a long time ago. My mother was raised by her grandmother while her mother ran the streets. And while my grandmother was running the streets, left her baby girl behind, my grandmother ended up marrying a man. We call him Pop. He's deceased now. My late grandfather, even though he's not my biological grandfather, we all called him Pop. So he, adopted my mother as his own daughter in her teenage years. But it's fucked up. My grandmother ran the streets, abandoned my mother, and started a whole new family. That is what narcissists do. They abandon their children like nothing. It's cruel. And that's the only empathy I have for my mother. That's what makes I feel sorry for her because she did not deserve that type of treatment, right? So she has not only a mother wound because her mother abandoned her and neglected her, she definitely has a father wound. Her father neglected her. And although her grandparents may have raised her, it's not the same as having mom and dad around. Those are your grandparents. And what ended up happening, her grandmother spoiled her to take up for the loss of her mama not being there to raise her. And what happens when you raise a child and spoil the fuck out of them or treat them better than the other children, you create an entitled, spoiled brat. You create a monster. They turn into a narcissist because that's all narcissists are. They're spoiled brats, self-entitled, me. So, not only was she abandoned by her parents, she was spoiled and groomed to be highly selfish. Her grandmother, I believe, spoiled her to make up for the loss of her mother not being there. So, where am I going with this? I believe my mother had a deep resentment towards her parents. She claims that, she's forgiven them. I don't buy that because if you really had forgiven your parents, you wouldn't have bullied and treated your children like shit. Had you really, truly forgiven your mother and father, you would have never turned around and bullied, beaten, bloodied, assaulted me and my brother. When you're healed, everything goes. You do not transfer that energy and you don't pass it down to your children. So I call bullshit. She wanted to believe she forgave and got over it, got past it. No, she passed her fucking trauma that her parents created with her. Her parents' trauma passed on to her, and she turned right the fuck around and passed it on down to my siblings. My mother is far from healed. She is still broken to this day. Because when you're healed and you understand what was done to you, you would never do your children the same way. That's just common sense. You're born with love inside of your heart, and you would never want your children to suffer the way that you did when you were a child. You know how your mother and father made you feel when they abandoned you. That's straight abuse. Why do your children the same? There's no excuse. So I feel she was craving a longing for a mother. Although her grandmother raised her, it's not the same as her mother. She needed that nurturing from her mother. And because her mother is a narcissist, her mama could not give it to her. So what happened, when my mother was in high school and she learned who her real biological father was, my mother had no idea who her biological father was because she was being raised by her stepfather, my pop. And somebody came up to her and told her about her actual father, Langston, who was a married man. And so that probably, she probably had resentment towards her mama there. Like, Mom, why didn't you tell me about who my real father is? I'd be fucking pissed to withhold it for that long. My mother was in high school when she found out. I'd be pissed at my mother. That's fucked up. But they kept it. It was like a dirty little secret. Because my grandmother was hot in the ass, and the way that she linked up with this married man, dirty, okay? Creeping and being dirty and fast. And it didn't stop there. She gave birth to my mother and kept on creeping in the streets until she ended up married and had 2 more kids. How you have a husband and a whole new family, but you left the other one behind you? She left a couple, actually. It was my mother and her older brother. She's got like 3 older brothers. So my grandmother has multiple baby daddies. She was a hot mess. You up and have kids, and you up and leave them, abandon them. That's emotional neglect. Then you run the streets. You marry a man and start a whole nother family. That shit is fucked up. So my mother had that deep-rooted mother wound in her. So what happened, my mother's parents and my father's parents, they all live on the same street, a block from each other. In Trenton, New Jersey, they lived on Walnut Avenue. My mother's parents lived at 436 Walnut Avenue, and my father's parents lived at 323 Walnut Avenue, a block from each other. I don't know how my mother came to meet my Nana, my father's mother, but in high school, she used to go and do my Nana's hair. This is my father's mother I'm talking about now, okay? She would go to my Nana's house as a teenager and do her hair, and they bonded. So I think what happened was my Nana stepped in and became that nurturing mother to my mother. That's why they're so close. And also my Nana she's incredibly toxic. My Nana is a malignant narcissist. I believe that's another reason why they bonded, because they were so much alike. But my Nana took on a mother role to my mother. They got really close and they bonded. And I believe their bond was closer than that of my mother and her mother. Okay. And that's how my mother met my father. And my Nana pressured them to get together, to date, get married, and get pregnant, start a family. My Nana was so desperate to have a grandchild and to see her sons get married. So what it was told to me is that she paid for or arranged for my parents to have a shotgun wedding. So they got married in somebody's backyard. And what I heard was it was a lot of drama and fighting and chaos. It was a ghetto ass wedding in somebody's backyard. Nonetheless, they got married. And the reason why they got married is because my mother was pregnant with me. So I feel that my Nana, she's super controlling. And again, narcissists are about appearances. Okay. She was very abusive, beat the living crap out my father and his brothers. I mean, very abusive. She was violent. Okay. My grandmother was so violent and a street hustler. She ran numbers. If y'all don't know what numbers is, it's like the lottery, illegal lottery. She ran numbers out of her house and what I was told, liquor, selling liquor, all types of stuff. She went to prison. She went for a few months or whatever. But my Nana, I'm like, yo, my grandmother was in prison? Sociopath. My Nana is a total narcissistic sociopath. Yeah. Okay. Always fist fighting my grandfather, violent fist fights, very big mouth, very nasty, cuss like a sailor, almost bully like behavior. The sound of her voice was very boisterous and intimidating. Okay. She loved to yell. She never stopped yelling and cussing out people. She and my mother became very close when my mother was a teenager. Next thing you know, here comes a prearranged fucking wedding. I believe my parents got married. My mother was 19, too young. My father, too young. Broke, no money. No, they were just not prepared for anything. But they allowed my grandmother to put her hands in everything and put everything together. Because it's about appearances. Oh, my son's getting married. Oh, my daughter-in-law is about to have my first grandchild. It's about appearances. Never mind the fact that these two young people are both broken, unhealed. Financially, they're not ready. They don't have their shit together. Neither one of them got to live out their life, their dreams. My mother could sing. What if she went to college and pursued a career, a musical career? And actually made a very lucrative, made good money at, singing and touring. She could have, went after her dreams. Why have a family at such a young age? She allowed my grandmother to pressure her. She allowed my grandmother to talk her into this shit. It is my Nana's influence. Now, I don't know about my mother's mother, if they had a hand. Well, no. Actually, I was told that they warned her not to marry my father. Don't marry him. He's not ready yet. My mother went ahead and married him anyway. She was pregnant with me. That's why she hates my ass, because I'm like the glue, She probably resents me. Like, if I didn't get pregnant with you, I wouldn't have had to marry your father. It's all your fault because I hate your father. He turned out to be a fucking lame, a loser, blah, blah. No, my mother really needs to be mad at my grandmother for pressuring her to get married and have kids so she could have bragging rights, so she could tell everybody she got a grandchild. She allowed, simply because my mother craved the love of a mother. She craved the love of a mother, and she bonded with my toxic grandmother and allowed my grandmother to manipulate her and coerce her into getting with my father. That's where my mother's anger comes from, because she had no idea that she would, the constant fight, the homelessness. I got stories. My mother doesn't know. I remember everything. Sleeping in motels. There was a time where, my Uncle George had a beauty salon, and my mother worked for him. I forget what she did, but we had to up and leave in the middle of the night and sleep in the office. We were sleeping on the floor in the office, in the salon. She went through a lot with my father. That's why I can't respect him as a man. I can't stand my mother, but my father was less than a man. He did not take care of his family. But that's my Nana's fault too, because why would you force your son to get married and he's not a man? He's nowhere ready. He has no money saved. He's not self-sufficient. What does he want to do with his future? So I believe that my mother to this day will not hold my Nana accountable for pressuring her and coercing her to get with my daddy and have babies. That's who my mother needs to fucking be mad at. But my mother has her nose up my grandmother's ass so far, because they're both narcissists. They're one and the same. They're the same demon, same spirit. They have both violated and abused their children into the fucking ground. They have both destroyed their legacy, their family, their children are all broken up. They are one and the same. But had my mother had her own brain and used discernment, she could have avoided marriage and children altogether. But she never stood up to my Nana because she craved the love of a mother, because her own mother emotionally was not there. My grandmother Vera was there physically, but the emotions was not there. I don't care what my mother says. My grandmother, Vera Mae Gibson, is a covert, vulnerable narcissist. That's why she has children all over the place with different men. Because she could have a baby and drop it and dump it and say whatever and run on and go somewhere else and start a whole new life. Anybody that does that to a child has no connection emotionally to the child. Emotionally disconnected to leave a child like that and start a whole new life somewhere else. The truth is the truth. So my mother needed that, I think after her grandmother died, because remember I said her grandmother raised her up into a certain point, up until high school. My mother still craved for a mother. Okay. And my father's mother stepped in and gave her that motherly love. They bonded on that level. But what she didn't realize, and my mother's young, maybe she was young and gullible and didn't realize the severity of my grandmother's manipulation. My Nana is extremely manipulative. So again, that's the only empathy I have for my mother. She lacked discernment. And she could not realize then, my Nana was married, but she was miserable and married. People on the outside looking in, yeah, my Nana might be married to a good looking, handsome, light skinned man with wavy hair, and she might have 3 handsome sons. But what goes on behind closed doors is a lot of violence, a lot of chaos, a lot of dysfunction. Why bring a child into this world and fuck them up psychologically? All 3 of my Nana's sons, my father and his 2 brothers, my Uncle Dion has passed away. He was a baby. He's deceased now. She fucked all of them up psychologically. She fucked all of them up. My Nana has to have things her way. It's her way or the highway. If you don't give her way, she's going to bully her way to get it. She's going to coercively control you to get what she fucking wants. She wanted a grandbaby. She wanted to see her son married and be in a wedding and be the talk of the town. My father being her oldest child, her firstborn, that was a big deal. Oh my God, my son is having a baby. My son is getting married. It was all about her, what she wanted, and keeping up with appearances. Neither one of my parents were ready, and they both were manipulated to get into something they should have never. So yeah, my mother has misplaced anger towards me. And even my father, even though he was a lousy deadbeat, the anger should go towards my Nana. Because my Nana was a miserable married woman. And one thing that a miserable married woman cannot handle is being miserable by herself. She's got to pull another woman down with her. That's why I tell y'all, a lot of these married women that are in these long-term marriages, 30, 40, 50 years, they're not happy, honey. And they be envious of these single, these single girls out here with their college degrees and they making a lot of money and traveling vacation. They happily single. These married women be fucking envious of single women. Because they wish they had y'all freedom. They tied down to their fucking husbands. They hate their fucking husbands. Now it's half and half. There's some married women that'll actually tell single women, don't get married. Marriage is not what you think it is. Marriage is a scam. Marriage is a trap. However, there are the miserable married women who secretly envy single women and they want to see a woman. You need to go ahead and get married. Why don't you and your baby daddy get back together? They want to see you tied down to a toxic nigga because they're tied down to a toxic man. Misery loves company. And that's what I believe. My Nana was miserable in her marriage. All that fighting, carrying on, chaos in her household. She did not want to be alone. So with my mother, she manipulated and pulled my mother right on into the dysfunction cycle. And because of that, my mother was tied down to a trifling black man, an irresponsible, lazy black man who did not care where we ate, where we slept, you know, how his children got around. You know how many elementary schools we transferred to so many public schools. We were so unstable because we had no housing. We're jumping from city to city, sleeping in different motels. My father was not a leader. He was not ready. He's still irresponsible. He's in his 70s now. My father has never been responsible. Never. And my mother was so angry. I'm sure she feels duped and scammed and conned, but her anger towards me, no. Her anger should be towards the woman who pretended to be a motherly figure. My Nana manipulated my mother. And that's where my mother's anger needs to go to. Because she's turned on her children. The frustrations of being tied down to this trifling ass man. It's not your children's fault. And it's wrong for what she did. She projected so much pain and trauma from her own mother, from her mother's abandonment issues. My mother was so damaged. She had no business getting married and having kids. You got to heal and work on yourself before you think of bringing an innocent child into this world, or else you will break and destroy your children. She should blame my Nana for manipulating her, because that's what happened. My mother was misguided and manipulated into getting with my father and getting pregnant and starting a family. And she got fucked over. She did. Y'all let me know what you think. You know, does this sound like your mama? You know, why does your mother have it out for you? And you know, was she pressured to have a family to keep up with appearances? And she's angry now, but she took her anger out on you instead of addressing the motherfuckers who pressured her. Let's talk about it in the comment section, y'all. Remember, I will be in Toronto May 14th. Get your tickets. The link is down below in the comment section. I pinned it. Love you guys. Bye.